This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agner. Today, I am lucky enough, and I do mean it today. I say it a lot. I mean it every time, but I really mean it now. Dave Reinhold, my former boss, I guess you could call it, has struck out, and he is now running VentureCPO. Incredibly talented product guy, one of my good friends, and I'm super, super excited to have him on the show today. David, hello,
Hey
sir. How are
Jay,
you?
how's it going? It's great to be here.
Where is here? Are you in upstate New York, side state New York? How do you, where are
Not
you?
upstate. I'm
No?
about 20 miles north of Manhattan, so southern Westchester. But some
Okay.
people consider Westchester upstate. But yeah, pretty close to Manhattan. I've lived in New York my whole life. Grew up in the suburbs of New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, still living in New York.
What, do you think there was any impact on you kind of having that entrepreneurial spirit throughout your life? Was there, when you grew up, were your parents entrepreneurs? Did you know entrepreneurs? Did you where did it finally come from? Because
Yeah.
I see a lot of people that got that experience earlier in life, and it may take 20 years to kind of come out. Where did you get yours from?
It's a great question. I mean, there's no kind of definitive moment, I would say. My parents divorced when I was really young, and I was super close with both of them. But I remember at a really young age, I'm talking at 5 years old, wanting to find a way to have my own money or not be like super reliant on my parents for everything. And so it's funny, I remember in middle school, kind of my first company, if you will. I took a loan from my mom to buy bubble gum in bulk from a local candy store. And I also bought a bunch of those handheld fans, because we had no air conditioning back in those days. And so I bought in bulk and then I brought them to school and sold them, at a markup, and did this enough times where eventually I had enough money to pay my mother back for the loan, but I still had money to then, kind of purchase additional inventory. And I did this for a while, and, you'd be surprised. It was a good little business. But I think it was just, this kind of desire and drive to not be fully reliant on my parents for everything.
Did you have any other businesses along the way?
Not really before my professional career. I mean, one kind of really important inflection point in my life was when I was also in middle school, and I got my first computer, right? You got to remember, I was born in the late 70s, right? So I was the last generation born into an analog world that
Mm-hmm.
went digital. And so I remember getting a Commodore 64. It was this, really kind of impactful moment in my life. And it really started my passion for technology and digital products. I mean, I'm talking, this is when you had to dial up through AOL, and my sister would be on the home landline and I'd have to yell at her to get off so I can get online.
Right.
But just opening that door to this whole digital world was so impactful. And that's really where my passion for tech and digital products was born. And I really studied, all of my studies were really around, management information systems or digital products, and also entrepreneurship.
Hmm. And what did you go to school for? What was your actual degree in? Was it in
Yeah.
management
So
information systems?
Binghamton University, SUNY Binghamton for undergrad, and studied management information systems. And a few years into my career, I went to business school. I went to NYU Stern and did a double major in management information systems and entrepreneurship. And really, it's funny. I went to business school after spending 5 or so years, in the industry working in product management roles. And I really wanted to get a formal product management education, but you couldn't go to school at that time and
Mm.
manage, or major in product management. It just didn't exist. And
Right.
so
Right.
you kind of had to piece it together by focusing on different areas.
Interesting. So let's fast forward. We met when you worked at Loeb in New York,
Yep.
and you came in as kind of I guess, a savior type role with the company that we were at that'll remain nameless for now. But I just, I saw you come in as kind of like this, Mr. Fix It type for the product that we were working on. And it's interesting to see you've kind of made that your own business, right? So, and I
Yeah.
know you can tell me as much or as little about how you went from Loeb, to your own thing, but like, give me the background there. Like, what were you doing
Sure.
at Loeb, and then kind of how did you break out, or why did you break out? Were you forced? Like, just give me the journey into starting the business, because a lot of people are in that space where they go, "I've got all this experience, I want to do something," and then they just stay in the same place forever.
Yeah, sure. So, tying that into the previous question about entrepreneurial impact and influences, I mean, a lot of my career I spent at startups, right? So, always around entrepreneurs, trying to solve big problems. And then I went to Loeb, amazing experience. I was there for 7 years, family office, venture investor, venture incubator, venture studio, extremely entrepreneurial environment. And like you mentioned, that's where we connected. And, I came in really as a fractional product leader, right? I was kind of, I like to say I parachute in and would help the low portfolio companies with things like product strategy, product roadmap formulation, putting the right process in place, building a team, and then ultimately executing against the roadmap and game plan that we put together. So, I've been playing that role for a while where I kind of come in on a temporary basis, try and fix things and or get things moving and then move on to the next thing. And so about 5 months ago, I took the plunge into entrepreneurship finally for the first time, doing something for myself after 25 years of full-time roles at other organizations. And I launched VentureCPO, Venture Chief Product Officer, and it's a product management consultancy with something of a focus on early stage companies like seed, pre-seed or seed stage companies. But really, we provide product management consulting on a temporary or fractional basis with everything, like all aspects of the product lifecycle. So, upstream strategic planning, like I mentioned, strategy, roadmap, and then also on the execution side.
So how, but and I always wonder this about product consulting is how do you, is the process just abstracted enough where you're like, I can run this playbook on just about any type of startup, or like how much product, expertise or subject matter expertise does it take to really like impact the product somewhere? Or are you coming in to say like, here's the framework, you guys are the experts, you tell me kind of what I don't know about this industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's the methodology of product management, and obviously, you need to be an effective product consultant or product manager in general. You need to have expertise in that methodology. The other piece is the domain expertise, in the specific vertical or sector
Hmm.
that you're trying to, drive an outcome. So typically, I'll come in and I do have my playbook, right? And part of the service that I'm selling is all right, let's get this framework in place. These are the things we need to do. Where it gets kind of specific to the vertical is when we start doing the different type of research that you need to do to influence, the product strategy.
Hmm.
So, user research, talking to users, looking at the overall market, looking at the competition. So that's where the methodology is kind of extensible or adaptable for any industry because the inputs are always going to be very specific to the industry that the company is operating in. And in some cases, I will do that research myself, but in most cases, it's more of a collaborative effort where, myself along with members of the team for the company I'm consulting for will collaboratively do this research. Different folks will pull in different inputs, and then we'll bring it all in together and distill it down into a workable strategy.
So like an upside to using a consultant, and I've been one for a long time, is like the lack of overhead for a W-2 employee, right? Like you come
Yeah.
in as a guy and you do your thing. Now, does the do you think there's going to be headwind for you for people who want product people in their specific space, even though, like you just said, you've kind of got a framework to get just about any business that's in, a certain state to the next
Yeah.
state? Like, do you think you're going to hit that point where people are going to go, we really need a, or do you think it's even valid? I guess is the question, right? Like, do you think if we were going to work with a healthcare company, go, yeah, we were looking between you and another company, but these guys, do a lot more in healthcare. Do you think the domain is going to be something that eventually you kind of lean into more, even though you already have a vertical, which is great. The venture stuff I think is something pretty unique. Do you
Yep.
think you're going to have to continue to kind of like narrow down? And I hate to say niche down;
Yep.
it's like one of my least favorite overused phrases, but like that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably depends on the stage or maturity of the company, right? Because the later, like if you're talking Series A or later, I would agree you need an internal product team that has domain expertise to really, get from one to N. But to get from
Hmm.
zero to one, while domain expertise is important, I think it's what's more important is that you have a sound methodology and a quick and easy approach to get to building from zero to one or that MVP. I do have a lot of fintech experience. I have a lot of ad tech experience. That was before joining Loeb. Loeb has a very diverse portfolio. It's amazing, right? And so
Hmm.
my time there, I developed expertise in so many different verticals. But I think your intuition is right. Especially if I want to get into later stage companies where presumably there's larger budgets, having specific domain expertise will definitely become a factor.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, but I think it's a really fair point, especially since you're kind of right now attacking that venture stage. It really is the methodology, right? I mean, they probably come with that domain expertise. Like the companies that are coming to you, like have that domain expertise, like you said, and like you're kind of just applying this like kind of proven framework on top of it. I love that. Who was your first customer?
So when I branched out and launched the consultancy, my first customer is and was and still is a digital health company. The founder used to work at Loeb. We were good friends, still are, and so he branched out, launched his own business. And when I started focusing on the consulting side, signed them up as a client pretty quickly, which was awesome because you always want to get that first win to kind of feel validation that what you're doing is actually viable. And I'm still consulting with that company today. So it's been a great first customer.
Love the first customer stories. And my favorite follow-up question is always, how has that changed? And you've been doing it for only 5 months. So I'm actually more curious to hear that than somebody who's been doing it for 5 years. How is who you thought your customer was going to be when you started versus who it is now? Or is it exactly the same and like nothing's changed?
It's definitely changed, and I think it's still changing. Like I mentioned earlier, my kind of specialty is with early stage companies, right? But I have had some demand for later stage companies. Either they're going through a digital transformation or they're implementing product management methodologies for the first time. So that's been interesting to see that later stage companies that are not their core business is not a digital product. It's a service or some sort of other offering. And now they're looking to build digital product. And so they'll look, for some expertise to bring in house. But I think, what's interesting is when I started this journey, I had a lot of support from my network, great network that I built over the years, 25 years in, right? So got a great network. And a lot of the initial clients came through just referrals, word of mouth. And I really started off with a bang. And, I was so busy, like day one, just delivering services that I had already agreed to. I didn't really do much business development because I didn't have a need at that time. You know, Now we're 5 months in. I've successfully completed a couple of engagements. I still have a couple clients, but I now have some bandwidth. And so I'm still trying to work, leverage my network to get some additional opportunities. And that is working. But now I'm also starting to do business development, and that is just a whole new thing for me, right? I mean, it's not something I've really had to do much of in my career. And so it's different, it's challenging, it's a new skill, but I think I'm doing an okay job.
I love to hear that. That's
Yeah.
like the sign that you found something successful, especially as like an agency or, a consulting firm or whatever. Like once you get past, if you make it at all, you'll start with your network and then you kind of work your way through your network and then you go, okay, that was cool. I was successful. Now, like, how do I do this for real? And it's like a scary, exciting, lots of things to learn and lots of questions to ask. And and I don't think that part ever ends. I think you just like, once you start figuring out some of it, you're like, okay, going to these conferences gets me a lot of conversations. Going to this, event does, or sending emails to these type of people does. But then like once you've locked that in, you're like, all right, what's the next one and the next one and the next one, and really never, which is kind of a fun thing, at least for me. Like I love that part of the business. What does biz dev mean to you? Like when you say you're doing business development, like give me some concrete. Like, are you playing golf and having lunches? Like, what are we
Yeah,
doing
all
for
day.
biz?
Just out on the golf course. No, a lot of conversations. I think my main kind of strategy has been to partner with venture funds, right? Because it's a one to many relationship. If I can, establish rapport and earn the trust of a VC, then they refer me down to their portfolio. And it's a very warm introduction when your investor taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, I just gave you a check. I know you have product leadership needs. You should talk to Dave. So, I'm really trying to form alliances and partnerships with VCs. So there's just been a lot of meetings and conversations around that. I've been finding these platforms that or communities that exist for fractional executives, starting to, build a presence in these platforms. That's kind of it TBD on how effective they are, right? Like my concern is that you have a ton of fractional executives in these platforms and then an opportunity comes in and everyone just pounces, right? So because you literally have a cluster of all the folks looking for this type of work. But it's great to see that there are platforms out there for folks doing this type of work. So I've
Mhm.
been trying to build up a presence there. And I've even started to do some LinkedIn advertising, which is honestly not something I really ever envisioned doing, but had an agency reach out to me and gave me kind of the let's give it a go for free kind of
Yeah, yeah,
sales pitch. So I
yeah.
said, you know what, let's there's nothing to lose, right? I mean, I've got boundaries and tight controls on what I'm comfortable doing, what I'm comfortable with them doing on my behalf, but that's actually starting to drive some interesting conversations. So I've got a few different angles I'm pursuing.
I love that. And I do actually I love the community thing. Like I'm a huge community builder guy. Like I've always like I'm just a huge proponent of it. Like I've got my astrophotography group that I talk about all the time. It's like 2,500 people in it. Like I just love having and building these groups of people. And when you can do it for a business, it's like super effective. And then
Yep.
like also these communities you're talking about, the one thing that I've seen in those, even if they're crowded with competitors, like you get known as the venture guy. So then
Right.
when those opportunities come in, they look to you instead of just like everybody descending on it because, it's just
Yeah.
like fresh meat, but it's like Dave is the guy, so we're going to bring him in. So hopefully
Yeah.
that kind of starts to head that way for you.
And that's a good point. Just wanted to add to that.
Yeah.
I think fractional as a concept has been around for a while. I think there's a lot of folks, providing services like fractional CMO or, on the operations side or the finance side. But what I hear pretty consistently is that fractional product leadership is something of a niche. There's not a lot of folks out there
Mhm.
offering those services. So I hope that's true because hopefully that leads to more demand coming my way. But tying that back to your comment, like that's one of the reasons I've spent the time and effort to build a presence in these communities is because I'm not finding a lot of fractional CPOs in those communities. And so I'm hoping there's some first mover advantage there.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it does. And I mean, you're going to try a million things and some's going to work and some's not. And you're going to find great channels for business and
Yeah.
ones that are just a waste of time. So, I mean, just on a personal level, I'm proud of you, man. This is like cool. Like, it's a cool, like, reverse of the universe where, like,
Yeah.
a former, and let's be honest, I never really considered you a boss. Like, you were kind of like the guy that came from the other, so, but
Yeah.
I loved
The
you.
mothership.
We had a lot, yeah, like we had a lot of fun together, and I came to respect you a lot, and I am proud of you. This is a very cool thing to see, and like you jumped out of the gate and got some clients, and you got a great personality for it. So I think you're gonna do well. Give me, as a dad, give me three things that you kind of work on to stay healthy, right? Because we all want to stay at least active, and have
Yeah.
longevity is the word. So what do you do? What do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah. So a new habit that I've picked up thanks to my wife is meditation. And there's so many great tools and apps out there. I mean, it's so easy to do these days. But following my wife's lead in that regard. And by the way, I should give a huge shout out to my wife. She's been super supportive to me on this journey. and just an incredible partner, and so shout out to Amy. Hi, Amy.
Show,
But yeah,
show, show her this later, and she'll be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it!" And you don't tell her that nobody's gonna watch it, but just tell her that you shouted her out on this part. Yes.
yeah. So no, but in all seriousness, I find that even just like 5 minutes of meditation in the morning really just kind of clears my head. I think in this new role, I'm juggling so many balls. It's insane, right? Like I'm delivering services and client meetings and having conversations in biz dev. And it's just like sometimes it gets very overwhelming. And
Hmm.
just, having a moment of clarity. I still try and exercise at least 3 times a week, so that's going well. I do, Orange Theory fitness. A lot of my friends like to poke fun at me for that, but honestly, it's a great 1 hour,
Yeah.
workout. And the other one that's kind of kept me grounded and healthy is playing guitar. I know that's
Yeah.
kind of an outlier, but for me, just picking up the guitar, strumming some chords, trying to sing some Pearl Jam or U2, it's very therapeutic. And, candidly, if I have a big call or meeting or something, sometimes like, 5 minutes before, I'll just be jamming out by myself, just
Wow.
trying to get the nerves under control. And
Nobody's ever said that before, and I think it's a great answer. Like,
yeah,
it's
it
just such an
works.
interesting release of like, whatever, just angst
Yeah.
before anything. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Those are all great. All
Thank you.
right. Well, let's end it there, but I have one more question that I have to ask.
Can't wait, Jay.
No, this is one that I ask to everybody. It's not one specifically for you because I don't
Okay.
think we couldn't air the ones that I would ask you probably. But if you could do anything on Earth and you knew you couldn't fail, what would it be?
Wow. I wish I would have gotten a heads up on this question,
And
Jay.
you did. It said mystery question.
Oh,
That's
well,
what
that's
there you
super
go. So I
informative.
don't want you to know about it. This is the point.
If I could do anything on earth without the risk of failing, was that what part of it?
That's the question. Yeah.
Come up to bat in the last game of the World Series where my hit determined, the outcome of the game. Because if I'm guaranteed not to fail, I'll hit the walk-off home run and be the hero.
There you go. And you might have your chance. You could go the Mets
Yeah,
may be in the world,
it's
so you may
great.
have you might be able to live this out. All right, Dave. How can people find you, and how can they find Venture CPO?
Yep. So VentureCPO.com is the easiest way to find me. You can get in touch with me through the website. I mean, my email is dave@VentureCPO.com. Very original. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. All right, man. Well, you're the man. Thank you for your time. I would say let's stay in touch, but we stay in touch. So be good. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's go, Mets.
Ugh.